Hello everyone, my name is Faith Cook, and today I will be talking about a very important topic in all marriages, but specifically in the Christian marriage. So I have my little slideshow. I know it is going to be backwards in the video, but hopefully you'll still be able to get a little snippet of it. But today I will be talking about conflict resolution, specifically in a Christian marriage. So here's my first slide. I try to include some lovely illustrations, even though you guys can't really see them. But this is my introduction slide. So we're going to start with the most important source of information, which is Scripture itself. I'm just going to read this first. Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it. Ephesians 4:29. So one of the biggest things that I found in my research and also in just reading during this class was that our communication is the key of our relationship, and our communication is exactly how we're going to solve conflict, and learning how to communicate effectively and how to speak each other's language, not literally, but defining words for each other, defining what different topics mean to each other based off experience or whatnot. That kind of communication, that's going to be your basis of your marriage, and that's going to create a healthy and effective relationship. So this is my next slide. So in my research, I found some healthy steps. There's some steps here in my little slide. But often conflict resolution looks a lot like sitting down with your spouse and talking out a situation or a disagreement. We should be able to take tangible steps in order to come to a healthy conclusion. By taking these steps verbally, couples have a healthy and practical method for tackling disagreements without getting too emotionally involved or prolonging any kind of hurt. So by taking certain steps and knowing what you're going to do before you even get into a conflict, that can help you from becoming too emotionally worked up and having long-term hurt and just trying to prevent as much conflict in the future as well. So here's some steps, which I put my little resource. This is from Focus on the Family, which I think is a really good resource for marriage and also family, any kind of family help. They have a lot of good, the James Dobson, his podcast is extremely good, and then also their website has a lot of good sources for that. But it defines some tangible steps, and obviously I added on some of my own, but number one, define the problem that is going on in your relationship. Examine your own heart. So before ever accusing your spouse or assuming his intentions, assuming something about his or her heart, examine your own. Scripture also talks about not accusing someone when you have a log in your own eye, not trying to take the speck out of their eye when you have something in your own eye that you need to deal with first. So examining your own heart, examining your own intentions, and ultimately putting your spouse before yourself. That's going to keep from having a lot of future conflict. Number three, listen to your spouse. And when I say listen, I don't mean just sit there and hear them out. Listen to them. Repeat back what they're saying. Think about what they're saying. If you need time to think about it, genuinely put effort into hearing them. Don't just listen to them, hear them. Talk about how you can best come to a solution. So both of you need to talk about, okay, here's the conflict, here's my side, here's your side, here's how we can meet in the middle. And if you cannot find that, if you sit down and you cannot find a way to meet in the middle, have a third person. Having that, that's why a lot of people go to marriage therapy, is they need that outside perspective. They need someone both qualified and willing to just sit down with them and talk about some of the issues they're having. And then ultimately use God to use your conflicts to make your relationship stronger in the long term. And that is a lot more possible than I think a lot of couples realize. That God is able to use those conflicts, and sometimes those conflicts can end up being a blessing because it made them closer to each other and made their relationship stronger. This next slide is the core of conflict with my, again, little gifs. But, okay, so here's a couple different cores of conflict that you might have in your disagreements. So number one, you might speak different languages. Like I said previously, this is not literally speaking. We talked about this in the class, and this was mentioned multiple times in the book we're reading during this class. But due to our experience or the way we're raised, like the way our family raised us or defined certain words or certain experiences, you might have an entirely different idea of what a word means than your spouse does. Because you were raised in different families, you were raised differently, you might have been raised in different states, or maybe even a different country, and that can affect a lot more than I think we like to think. So learning how to use words in a way that your spouse understands can really, really reduce the amount of conflict you have in marriage. Another core of conflict might be your lack of sacrifice. Not actually putting your spouse before you. And ultimately, when we aren't putting our spouse before us, we're not putting God before us. It says in Scripture that we are to love others as Christ has loved us, and Christ loved us unconditionally. And so when we choose not to sacrifice for our spouse, who we are commanded to sacrifice for, we're ultimately not sacrificing for God. And I think that kind of changes the mindset that people have coming into marriage and coming into having a disagreement with their spouse. Kind of related to that, going off of that, you might also have a conflict with God. If you were spiritually not doing well, that's going to carry over into every other aspect of your life. So that's going to carry on into your marriage. It's going to carry on into your relationships, into your friendships. It's going to affect everything. So focus on that most important core first, and then touch on the rest. Again, we have to want peace. So if we really want, in order to have a healthy marriage, we have to really want a healthy marriage. You aren't going to get it by accident. You're going to get it on purpose. We can be ignorant of our words' power. So like I said, we can misunderstand words that our spouse might say. We speak different languages. That can definitely be a barrier, but also saying certain things that might be offensive to our spouse or offensive to others. A lot of times we don't realize how powerful that is and how that can stick with someone over time. So that's something also to think about. Ultimately, the core of a quality relationship is surrender. And I know you can't read this, but it says to both God and each other. So surrendering to God, which also means you are going to surrender to your spouse. You no longer have rights. Your rights are God's, and your rights are your spouse's. Ultimately, God should be making the decisions in your marriage. And to surrender to God is to also surrender to your spouse. Ultimately, be committed to having a quality relationship with your spouse. I know this is supposed to be like 10 minutes, so I'm trying to keep it under. And then here's a little quote I found on another resource from Focus on the Family, and it says, "Love keeps no records of wrong." So if we have had a conflict, we go back and we deal with it. I'm not saying it's entirely something that we can physically forget, but do your best to just put that in the past. If we deal with that, we don't need to bring that back up. Love keeps no records of wrongs. Here are my references. And here is my conclusion page. Thank you for listening, and I hope that was a little helpful to your married now or your future marriage. Thank you.